Why do people have personal trainers? Because they don't know how to lift weights? No, it's so that they will do the weights or change or have variety. So we have accountability partners for a reason, because especially now in this world, with phones, is that it is distracting. And so we need to create an environment where we can succeed and have that structure in place, because again, nothing's going to happen by accident. And if I don't have that structure in place, this whole wellness, this whole leadership, this whole purpose, it just is not going to happen. And you're just going to get off course very, very quickly.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ApexRun podcast. We have a special guest today, Dr. Keis. Ken, you're welcome to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and what your business is about and what you've been up to.
Well, Art, thanks for having us on the show. It's always a pleasure to be able to serve audience members and people out there in the marketplace. I've been in the professional development space now for 36 years. I actually grew up on a dairy farm. So what's a dairy farmer doing in the professional development field? I knew when I was 16 years of age that I wanted to be a communicator and help people with the transformation of their life. So I had an opportunity in 1989 to move into my sales job into sales training. Then I ran into CRG, which is the company I own now. Our number one focus is to help individuals to live, lead, and work on purpose, and to develop the whole leader holistically. So all the elements there. And so here we are 45 years later, because the company was founded in 1979. I bought it in 2002, been around it for 35 years. And so our whole goal is to help create self-awareness, that creates self-management, that creates self-mastery in the entirety of your life. Now, a lot of people say, hey, you should specialize. No, it's really, if you think about it, if you have a high performance car, Art, it's not just the tires. It's not just the engine. It's not just the alignment. It's all of those things that combine to make it perform well. And that's the same thing for us as human beings. So we have 14 assessments that really work as a congruent system. Wellness is one of them, as well as online courses that support those components. And then we license other professional developers around the world to use our tools or resources to serve their clients, both internally as HR managers or coaches, trainers, or independent entrepreneurs like yourself, Art.
That's an excellent introduction. Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
You're welcome.
I'm actually quite interested to look into your program and read the book and see how you can, how your system can improve people's lives, because people are definitely lost nowadays. I mean, there's so many distractions, and everybody wants to pull you in so many directions. But you gotta you gotta know your purpose, your vision, and work towards that.
Absolutely. And I just finished filming our intense leadership course, which will be, at the time of recording this, will be launched within a week or two. Um, and when we look at the data, is that 70, 80, even 90% of people are disengaged at work. That's going to create stress. I mean, you want this topic of this show to be around wellness. Well, how could I actually feel well if I dislike what I do, from I irritate to loathe? We have burnout at 50, 60, 70% of leaders. So we talk about leadership development, and there's a real gap around the world in leadership development. But what about the leaders taking care of themselves? There's a real identity crisis. Less than 10% of the population say that they're living on purpose. That was the Quest for Purpose book. We'll give you a link to get a free download of that later in the show. But people need to kind of lean in and start doing the work. And they, like you said, they have all these shiny objects. They're trying to think about a microwave life, and they maybe are not willing to do the work to be in this fulfilling self. Way back in 1989, when I got into the professional speaking industry, I ran into an individual who said, I'm started doing coaching or purpose work with students to keep them in school because they were always dropping out. And he says, I found out adults needed it more than high school students. And so I actually, before coaching was big, I hired Mike as a coach. I live in Vancouver, Canada. Mike was in Seattle, Washington. It's 2.5 hour drive each way. This is long before Zoom and any kind of media that we can do virtually. And I've traveled to him and drove 2.5 hours each way to do our coaching sessions. So I went on this journey. I says, I knew I was supposed to speak, but I didn't know about what to who. And that was the journey I went on, and journaled and did all of that work for 6 months to move on this journey to say, what is my identity? So my purpose in life is to help you to find yours, and to really realize your full potential in all areas of your life. And it's a sad situation that the majority of the population is not in that space.
That's a valid point. Plus, on top of that, a lot of people they do set the goals, but they don't have the, um, I guess, willpower to start and finish. A lot of people start things and they just drop it. So, I guess one of the first questions, the preamble, would be how does your program help people maintain the willpower to persevere and achieve their goals?
Well, we actually, one of the things in my purpose book is we talk about procrastination. Now, I'm not saying this is always the case, but procrastination sometimes can be a couple of things can lead to it. I'm doing the wrong thing. So we teach personality, we teach values, wellness, we teach self-worth, leadership skills, all of these as systems, is that if I'm in a role or responsibility that's not a fit to my personality, then I cannot sustain my engagement. If I'm doing a role or responsibility that's not part of my passion, my gifts, my calling, I cannot sustain engagement. So a lot of times when you run into people said, what do you want to do in your life? I don't know. I'm just doing something right now. So people don't stay engaged or they get disengaged because they're not doing the right thing. The other one that happens in the marketplace, Art, and this is, as a leadership expert, is there's a lot of people that are doing the right things with the wrong environment. You imagine working for toxic leadership and toxic work environment. There was a study done. So let's say you're a team of 5, and you had a 6th person who is toxic. It will make the other 5 individuals 50% less effective because of the toxicity of the individual. So we could be doing the right thing, but we're in an environment that's not supportive. It doesn't have the right value set. It's not aligned. And so there's no judgment towards the other individuals. It's just not a fit for you. And then, as we said earlier, high percentage of individuals have not really done the work to say, what do I really, really want to do so I can stay engaged, so I can stay committed. So those would be some reasons that people drop off.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to jump into the actual list of questions that I had. So, starting with personal journey and philosophy, what first drew you into the world of self-actualization and personal development? Was there a defining experience that set you on this path?
I was part of a group called 4-H in Canada, which is really a youth group for people in the agricultural industry. And I won a trip to the national conference. And at 16 years of age, I was asked to be the speaker to a group of 400 very high level executives that were the sponsors of this. And I said, I was nervous, but I absolutely loved it. And so I knew then that I was going to be speaker. So I was asked at 18, 19, 20, 21 to be the MC of many groups. And then I didn't get into the profession per se till later, the late 80s. But I knew that it was sort of a calling of mine to be able to communicate to individuals and encourage them. Now, in high school, I almost failed high school. It was when I was doing my master's degree that they discovered I was dyslexic. So my work around doing professional development and being a writer, it wasn't until the invention of the computer. And I know I look really young, Art, but I went to college before computers really were part of the campus. So I was handwriting anything. I had a little dictionary beside me so I could spell words right. But when the invention of Word came and I could type and it would tell me what the words were incorrectly spelled or the grammar was wrong, then I actually all of a sudden could be a writer. And that's really moved me into that. So I moved from being a number 1 sales performer to being a sales trainer. That's what got me into this industry. And I very quickly progressed to developing the whole person and being connected to CRG. So there was this journey. So it started when I was 16, and then it took me till I was almost 30 before I got professionally into the industry.
Oh, well. Yeah, thinking about it, I just can't imagine people back in the day writing with their hand because yeah, well, nowadays with computers everything is autocorrected. Not even just the spelling mistakes, but the actual syntax is corrected and different words are inserted. And yeah, so that's incredible.
So I've been around the industry that's gone from when I first got in the industry, I'm on the West Coast, and then we had the contract with Chrysler to do all the people development in the country for nearly a decade. But we had one year where we were senior consultants creating a program. We traveled. I commuted from from the West Coast to the East Coast every week for a year to do the program because we didn't have email. I mean, people don't realize email is only like 97, 98, 99 where it began. And then when CompuServe had emails, it was all numbers. It wasn't even a name at that time. So we progressed to the point. So here we are, we're on a live stream recording. This, I mean, just to even fathom that was just not even possible. So I've been in the industry now for 35 years, and just the progression of how knowledge is imparted on people and podcasts, and it's just amazing. It's just been phenomenal.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I'm actually also in Vancouver, so we're not too far from each other. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Next question is, you've written extensively about purpose. In your words, how do you differentiate between living with purpose and living on purpose? And living on purpose is just day to day and without having a vision.
Okay. So part of years and years ago, I got to speak for Mark Victor Hansen in his group when, and he was the sort of co-author of Chicken Soup, which was, the New York Times bestseller for many, many years. And he says, if you don't have your purpose, then your purpose in life is to find your purpose. So I can't live on purpose until I've defined what that means for me. And a lot of times, as I said before, what I went through was this journey of self-discovery, because purpose is this holistic thing. It's not just, okay, what's my career? Career is really like the last thing that comes out of purpose work in my book, The Quest for Purpose, and our online course that supports it. Because I want to look at what are all the different elements. Our life has all these different pieces. My friends, my family, my recreational activities, my financial goals, my lifestyle goals. I can't have, I've got a great opportunity, my purpose to have this retail store and I'm going to really serve everybody. But I am one of 2 employees. We're open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and I want to take 3 months off. Well, I have a conflict between my lifestyle goals and the entrepreneurial opportunity. So people don't do this work where they try to refine what is the lifestyle, what I want to do. Do I like travel, not travel? Where do I want to travel? All these things are questions. And I journaled, 60 handwritten pages as part of the narrative that we take people through on the quest for purpose. So first of all, is just getting clear about all the elements in your life, physical activities too. Maybe you like to hike. Maybe you want to just play sports, communications. All of these elements come into creating this fulfilling, dynamic lifestyle. And then from there, I said, well, what career, role, and responsibility am I passionate about that will fulfill this picture, this image, and then I can live on purpose that way. So I love being my own boss. I can quit when I want to. I went and helped my son in his new home, and he had some work that he needed to do in the yard, and I like being physically active. So I just quit yesterday at 3:00 and I'm done. And I can do that. Or I can on Saturday morning do some work. I don't report to anybody. I barely can work for myself, Art, not along somebody else. So I need a business or a role that allows me the flexibility to do what I want when I want. Now, other people want to have structure. And there's not a right or wrong to this. I think people should not judge themselves. Listen, I want to be an employee. I want to be an employee of a company. I want to have that structure that brings it around me. And then I can be disciplined to do it. And that's the other one too, where you were asking earlier in the very beginning of this, why do people fail? There was some recent research. If I set a goal and then I don't sort of tag that goal with when I'm going to do it and how I'm going to do it, the likelihood that you're going to actually implement that goal, let's say it's working out, as a fitness program, wellness, is like in the low 20%. But if I actually say I'm going to work out and do the treadmill on Thursdays at 7 p.m., the likelihood gets closer to 70%. So when I have a goal, I want to be able to establish when and where and how I'm going to do it. And the likelihood is going to be like 3x of just having this innocuous, maybe I will, sometimes won't do it. So, structure is very, very important, and not to be rambly, but I would very fortunate with connecting with some amazing thought leaders in the world. And one of those people is Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who wrote the bestseller book, Triggers. So it's probably the best book on behavioral change in the world. And when I was in New York with his team, and he was the #1 executive coach in the world. And he says, nothing happens without structure. Okay. So if I don't have a system, if I don't have a process, and what he did is he would create an Excel sheet. What are the key questions I'm going to ask myself every day And they were not overwhelming. It was usually less than a dozen, maybe 8, 9, 10 kind of questions, core questions. And you ask yourself, did I do my best to be on purpose? Did I do my best to be kind to other people? Did I do my best to whatever? And you would rank yourself, and he would actually have a coach call him to hold him accountability. Why do people have personal trainers? Because they don't know how to lift weights? No, it's so that they will do the weights or change or have variety. So we have accountability partners for a reason, because especially now in this world, with phones, is that it is distracting. And so we need to create an environment where we can succeed and have that structure in place, because again, nothing's going to happen by accident. And if I don't have that structure in place, this whole wellness, this whole leadership, this whole purpose, it just is not going to happen. And you're just going to get off course very, very quickly.
That's an excellent answer. And a lot of people can definitely benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Um, how has your own journey of solo development evolved over the years, and what have you learned about yourself in the process?
Well, I'm the firstborn male, Eastern European descent. So my grandparents came from Hungary to Canada, all four of them. So I'm a purebred Hungarian, if you want to call it that. And I was the eldest male on the dairy farm. So when you think about, was there an expectation that I was going to take over? When I left the farm, man, I was called like a traitor and betrayed. And so there's a lot of well-meaning parents, well-meaning family members who they think they know best for you. And yes, they're not trying to be destructive in any way, but my calling wasn't, yes, I'm very good at the dairy farm, but that's not my calling. And I actually started my own dairy farm, and I got up one morning and I was already doing sales training, and I had the dairy farm. I was doing both. I was working 13 hours or 13 days a week, 12 hours a day as a single guy. And I asked myself this simple question, Art. I said, if I'm here 20 years from now at 5 a.m. in the morning milking these cows, is that okay? And I said, absolutely not. And so as a result of that, if this is not okay 10 years from now, then what is the shift? What is the change? So a lot of times, heritage and family, there's a lot of social pressure to put on individuals that cause them to go in directions because of family pressure, social pressure. You're not going to start your own business now, or you're going to go bankrupt. So everybody has an opinion. So this is one of my number one sayings. Every single person around you has an opinion. Very few people have wisdom. And so you never ask somebody who's never owned a business, should I start a business? Why would you do that? I mean, I don't ask somebody who doesn't have children how to parent. They don't know. They're not aware. They don't have the experience. So ask somebody who's a successful entrepreneur, should I go in my own business? They're going to have some insights to be able to take you there. So a lot of times and then in my middle stream, when I started this training company, I also made a major, major error, Art, that cost me in thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that is that I thought that to be an entrepreneur, I was going to be a serial entrepreneur. And I had multiple companies. I had a RV rental business. I had an alarm company. I invested in gold mining. It was all this kind of stuff. Well, most of them went bankrupt because I didn't have the energy to manage all these startups. And I had scarcity thinking. And I also thought that to have variety needed to be achieved through having multiple companies. And that was wrong. It was focus that I needed. And so I have multiple responsibilities at CRG. I now have authored, I think it's 4 million words of content, something around that, before AI, pardon me. And I've done 3,000 presentations. And so I'm running a company. We have the vision. We're developing content. So we have these, 14 online assessments and then courses, and then delivering and doing podcasts. So I have all that I need. And if I have other things that I want to do, so my investment side is around real estate and stocks rather than businesses that require my attention. So my mistake was trying to do too many things and think that I could do all of it. And being young in my 20s, of course, or even 30s, I was fictitious. Now, there are some people who are gifted like the Elons of the world who could do all these things that live on 3 hours of sleep. Well, that's not me, and that's not 99.9% of the population. I mean, he's a unicorn. There's nobody else like that can do all these different things. Or maybe Steve Jobs was like that too, where they have this sort of work obsession. Some of us want to have a little bit different variety in our life as well. So that's really, and then the other one is just to make sure that, and I said this already, don't take advice from people who really are not qualified, and also guard some of the vision that you have. If it's contrary to your family's direction or contrary to your friends, if all of your friends are employees and you want to start your own company, I wouldn't really share the fact that you're going to start your own company with your friends. I would go to and find mentors who are already gone there beforehand and lean into them and help them and, serve them as well as they're going to give you their wisdom as best as they can so that you can be successful in whatever journey you're going on.
Wow, that's a perfect answer. I think I'll definitely be interested in your course as well. You've developed, you spent decades developing assessments and models at CRG. What makes your approach to self-actualization different from more traditional personality tools like MBTI or DISC?
Well, it's interesting, and I have to be careful how I say it because I'm quite judgmental towards the other tools. We created the personal style indicator because we didn't like MBTI for our psychology courses at university. And the reason being is that people weren't remembering it. And plus, it was based on Carl Jung's work, which was abnormal psychology. We then actually had the rights to DISC. And then at that time, we found some structural issues that were hindering sort of the experience for the person. We thought it was incomplete. So really on a dare said, why don't we create our own and our own independent model, which is multi-theory based. Most of the other personality assessments are single theory based. So ones on Marston, which are the DISC tools, or MBTI, which is Carl Jung's work, or Wilson Learning Social Styles, which is on Merrill Reed's work. So there's all these different authors. But he said, what could we created our own theory, which really aggregates and takes the best of all of that. And then we took 20 years with 10,000 students to refine the personal style indicator. So the personal style indicator is the #1 rated personality assessment in the world by participants, not by all. I mean, education still likes some of the other ones. And then we said, why don't we create a tool that is developmental? So our tools are really created for the learner to take this information to the next step. So the tools are something I do with you, not something I do to you. And it's a big difference. So there's some tools that are evaluative, which sort of have these judgmental tones to them. And if you actually go back 30, 25, 30, 40 years in the psychology world, the psychologist says, I'm the only person qualified, Art, to tell you who you are because you couldn't possibly know yourself. Well, that's not true. The only person who could know you is you. Can we use our assessments, our instruments, and tools to create clarity and help you know who you are and your identity on this journey together? And then we also said we need to have a holistic model. So there's no single tool that captures the complexity of who we are. And so that's why the Quest for Purpose book has narrative and has questions, because there's things inside of you that no assessment's going to pull out. It's only you that's going to lean into your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. So then we created this whole holistic set of tools which are congruent, meaning they're not in conflict with one another. They work together as a system. So the values assessment is built out of the personal style indicator. The wellness assessment is not in conflict with those. The self-worth assessment is a complement to that one as well. So we have an entrepreneurial assessment as well, or the leadership skills. So they all work as a congruent, holistic development system. And we always were dealing with or believing in developing the whole person. So we have a model that we created for that. And then all of the tools, except for one, are really developmental, not evaluated. So the leadership skills is what we call a benchmarking tool. So this was a 160-hour university course on leadership. This is the new course that's coming out called Transformational Leadership. And so the tool benchmarks your level of skill in 60 different skills. So it's not developmental in its own, but it's benchmarking. So you go to the hospital and they take your blood pressure. Why? Because they want to benchmark it. So they benchmark the blood pressure. And then now we decide what we're going to do. So we find out what your cholesterol level or whatever it is, and then we're going to do what we need to do as a result of that. So the leadership skills is benchmarking, and then we go on a development journey. We have many coaches who will use the tool up front because a lot of leaders don't even know the skills that they don't know. So they're not even conscious, awake, or aware. Well, I don't know what that emotional intelligence skill is, or
Yeah,
EQ
it's
is, or
unconscious competence, basically, or incompetence. Yeah.
exactly. And we use those exact words in the assessment. But that's also true because you wanted to talk about wellness is our longest tool is our stress indicator and health planner. And I actually have a diploma in nutrition genetics. So the sales that I used to do was nutrition. I'm a nutritionist in the agricultural industry, but the information transfers, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, all these kinds of micro minerals. As human beings and mammals, we all have the same sort of applications in it. So in 1987, 88, I was misdiagnosed as manic depressive, and I was put on an antidepressant called lithium. And within 2 weeks, I was ready to kill somebody. Now, my friend in Texas, Sharon Rios, said, "Ken, you're not depressed. There's something else that's going on. I recommend that you do this assessment."
Supplements.
So I went to the doctor and I said, "I want a glucose tolerance test." I got that. I was extreme hypoglycemic. So I was not depressed. My blood sugar levels, I was medicating with a gallon of Coke a day, or some ridiculous thing. And so when I cut the sugar out, my blood sugar stabilized, my mental capacity also stabilized, and my depression, because I was very high or very low. And so my passion around wellness that we're wanting to talk about really comes out of this personal journey where I don't trust the medical system for my own health. I
Oh
trust
yeah.
myself for it.
Oh yeah.
And we believe in functional medicine. So when we were working in the agricultural industry, we didn't look and give cattle drugs unless they had an infection to improve their health. We looked at what's the inputs, what's the balance of the inputs, what's the environment, how do we nutritionally balance all of this and have the highest quality inputs so that they can have the highest level of performance. So my specialty was dairy, obviously coming off a dairy farm, that's where I was working. And that was so for the cattle to be the absolute optimum health and optimum performance. So human beings, the same thing. It's input equals output. And of course, I used to, and I apologize for it, but I used to actually work for Monsanto. And of course, we have all these toxic chemicals. And I was told way back in the 80s that glyphosate has no residual value. Well, we know every single cereal in Canada and the US has toxic levels of glyphosate, which is cancer causing to kids and to us as adults. So we need to get the toxicity out of our system. And that's why I have this passion over the stress indicator and health planner. And then what we did even within that tool is we created 5 different categories. So one of our number one clients for many years, not currently, but for many years, you'd be familiar with them, is London Drugs. And so for 25 years, they used that stress indicator and health planner for every one of their employees because Liz, who was a training manager, really believed in wellness, that in a highly stressful retail environment. So those people who are watching or aren't familiar, they have, retail stores that has a mix of pharmacy, but also a mixture of cameras, electronics, and nutritional products, your household items, all these kinds of things that they sell. So they said it's a highly stressful environment. We need our employees to optimize their health so that they can bring the best to the environment here. And so because the stress indicator and health planner is built into 5 different categories, first of all, we ask people, what are your sort of distress levels? So our body and our mental conditions and our responses is leaving clues about how well we are. I mean, do I sleep, not sleep? Am I anxious? Am I not anxious? Am I gaining weight, losing weight? All these kinds of, am I fearful? All these things that lead into distress. And then we break it down, and this is why they love the tool so much, to low-hanging fruit. We then talked about interpersonal stress. So relationships create stress. Do I have stress with significant other, with people at work, with friends, with family, or even with self? And then we moved into where many people talk about in wellness, what we call the nutritional side, which of course I have a real passion for. And there's more and more information, of course, that the food pyramid that North America is using is completely wrong,
It's called sad for a
incorrect.
reason.
Yeah, so sad for a reason. So no, no processed food, no grains. That's not the base. We have protein at the base of our environment. Fats are part of that. Are part of that. Some fruits are part of that. Some dairy is part of that, and really very, very limited on the grains. And of course, all of us can get into the drive-throughs, and we get into the donut shops, and we get in the muffins, and we get into all the processed foods within the center of the grocery store. And of course, chips and stuff like that are made to be addictive.
Oh, Jesus.
So,
Don't even get me started because they're all full of those oils, which are basically,
and of course, that was the vegetable oils.
yeah,
And the other one that, Dr. Robert talks about, and he's out of the University of California that did all this, UCLA, pardon me, is around corn fructose and what it does to our system and
it's
just
horrid.
damage. Yeah, it's horrible. So we need to, as much as possible, kind of get out of those processed foods, move into protein is not bad for you. Now, if you're a vegetarian, then you really have to lean into and take amino acid supplements. We're not going to get into the details of that here today, but go and do your research, find out about it. So functional medicine, we also need our sleep. And of course, one of my number one things is this phone. You get into reels, it gets into dopamine spikes, it sucks your brain out. That's the one thing I have to discipline myself more on. If I don't get my sleep, obviously I'm not going to be regenerated. I'm not going to have cognitive function. So those things that come into place. And then lifestyle is another component of what we call the wellness part of the assessment. So am I walking? Am I moving? Now we have elderly parents and they're not well there. So when we go into the old folks home, what's the number one issue? Mobility, right? They can't move. And so the less you move, the less you move. So things like grip strength, so even what they call a farmer's walk, where you take weights, put them in each hand and walk around. So you have this extra weight, you're forced to balance, and it's also improving the grip strength of you. The last thing is quality of life. I mean, when I go into my mother-in-law's home, just these individuals that just seem to be just alive. I mean, they come down, they eat, they go back to their unit, they never move, they don't work. There's all kinds of research around, the quality of, doing 10,000 steps a day. There's all kinds of new things that are coming out, but there's some new things that talking about if I'm walking, one of the ways to get a higher level of sort of human growth hormone into my system is to do brisk interval walking. So I walk slowly, but then I increase it. Now, there's another doctor she's really good around strength and how, weights are important for us to have muscle mass, and muscle mass, hinders osteoporosis. Muscle mass contributes to metabolic condition because we have all, dementias now called, type 3 diabetes or a metabolic disorder. Is that she said there's a brand new study out called 4x4, meaning you go 4 minutes as hard as you can in some kind of activity. Could be a treadmill, it could be rowing, could be a stair step, could be whatever. And then you take 4 minutes off and you do it 4 times. And she said that's the latest. Now, I'm sure after this is recorded and stays in the legacy media forever art, there'll be another study that comes out. So keep, refining. I used to do HIIT when I would do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So I would go as hard as I could for 30 seconds, which is Tabata, which came out of Japan, talking about where I go as hard as I can and then for 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds, and I do 8 rounds of that. Well, Tabata said, okay, now I can get the highest level of human growth hormone in that condition. Now, not every athlete or person who's not an athlete can do that. So the 4x4 is do as hard as you can, not killing yourself, as hard as you can for the 4 minutes, take 4 minutes off, and you've got a 16-minute outfit or workout there. Most of us can do that. And so that's easy to be able to kind of function. Or this new research around doing interval walking. And I'm sorry, I just don't remember the exact number, so I don't want to mislead people, where you do like 2 or 3 minutes intense walking, 2 or 3 minutes of light walking, and you just do 30 minutes of that in a day. I don't remember the exact number. Don't hold me to that. And this is a very effective way to stay healthy. And the other thing that was the longest term study around longevity is that having loving relationships in your life is one of the number one contributors to health. So what 2020 did is create sort of this isolated society. You need friends. You need to connect. You need to laugh. You need to hang out. You need to be physically present with individuals. Don't get lost on your reels. Don't get lost in your video games. Don't get lost in your TV shows. Get out there, connect with people, join a group. What are the groups you want to talk to? So, example, I just came back from the seniors games, and so for me to spend more time with my wife, Brenda, she's very good at tennis. So she's been doing tennis 2 or 3 times a week for 10 years. And I said, well, I'm athletic, but I haven't played a lot of tennis. So for us to be able to spend time together, I started playing tennis 2 or 3 years ago. And now we play tennis together. And not always. I play some men's doubles as well. And tennis, oh, by the way, has been ranked the healthiest sport in the world for people middle age and above. And here's why. It's athletic, so you got to move around and you get aerobic, but it's also hand-eye coordination. And it's also you're playing an opponent. And so then you have a thought process as a cognitive thing. So it actually was a study as the most healthiest sport. So basically racket sports, maybe badminton will fit into that. Maybe table tennis, maybe not. I don't think is as athletic. So, do something that you can build relationship with activity. Maybe it's hiking with somebody, maybe it's walking with somebody. And so you build this community. And then who can you hang out with that is like-minded? Now we went back to around who you hang out with. Who you really become is equal to your 5 closest relationships. So, and this is not to be judgmental, but if you notice that there are some people who are severely overweight, and they seem to have several friends who are severely overweight as well. And so it's almost like it feeds itself. And this really comes back from when Mark Victor Hansen was speaking, is that you will become like your 5 closest friends. And it's not that you're being judgmental. It's not that you're friends with nobody else. Is that, are you selecting the people who are influencing your life, the mindset, their wellness capability, their disciplines around it? Because as soon as you get into a group who is going in a different direction, they're just going to pull you in that direction.
It's like lifestyle by osmosis, almost.
Oh, it's 100%. It's 100%. So, it's not a judgment. It's just a reality is that by hanging out those individuals, that is who you're going to be
Become.
like. Now, and here's the other thing for individuals. And again, it's not being judgmental. A lot of us outgrow people that have been friends with us over the years. One of my mentors, Alan Weiss, who I hired, and he's one of the top management consultants in the world, he says, sometimes you outgrow your clients. So my capabilities now to where they were 20 years ago is so much higher. Well, the clients I served when I first started in the industry, they can't afford the work that I do now. So I've sort of outgrown those client base. Now, I'm not better than them. I'm just in a different zone, a different space. And I would pass them off to somebody else who's, starting in the industry. So the same thing for us with our friends is that sometimes we outgrow them. And our direction and our goals is different than where they were at because they didn't come along with us. And so, yeah, we're still in contact with them, but I'm not as active with them.
Oh, that's a lot of excellent information. I mean, I used to live with a roommate about 10 years ago, and when we first went to the grocery store, we would literally spend 3 hours buying groceries because we'll pick up every single item, we'll read all the ingredients on it. If I don't understand what that ingredient is, we'll basically Google it on the spot, and that would take us 3 hours. And after that, I know exactly what not to buy
Mm.
because you look at the ingredients, like side effects might include, used in heavy machine, what is it, heavy metal separation. Side effects might include, seizures, paralysis. Like, why is this in food? It's insane.
Well, yeah, well, a lot of them, I mean, remember years ago when they said margarine was so much better than butter? And
Oh
of course,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a couple of molecules away from plastic. So,
it is plastic.
so,
You're eating
so
plastic.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I was being a little bit kinder to it, and so that's crazy. So, and fat doesn't make you fat. So that's where the other one is that they demonize fat, and then everybody went into sugar. Well, no, it's really the carbs with fat and the carbs with sugar that then you have, again, this metabolic disorder. You see the pictures of what did everybody look like on the beach in the 60s, what they look like on the beach. You see these memes that
Yeah,
are out there in social media. So, I mean, lots of studies, the whole environment, the 24-hour food access, all the additives, and then, of course, yes, the vegetable oils that we just need to stay away from, that everybody was using corn oil or soy oil or all these elements, which we want to stay away from those because they just really destroy our metabolic system as part of that process. Then what we do in our assessment is then we talk about time stress. So, Dan Martell, amazing coach, talks about buy back your time. Is that if we're always stressed over time, that's we we all have. There's no such thing as time management. There's only priority management. So we've all heard, okay, we all have the same 24 hours, but how I do it, how I manage it, how I put it together that is our responsibility. And so most of us don't build margins. Most of us like book right to the edge. Well, then when an emergency comes up or something occurs, where's the R&R for you? Where's the reflective time? Where's the thinking time? Understanding time so that I have this space. Now, I can be guilty of this, of being quote unquote a workaholic. Growing up on a dairy farm, working 12 hours a day, that's nothing. I mean, because you're just doing chores, but it's not thinking, it's just doing, like it's a physical activity, right?
different thing. Yeah,
So time management is really, even this happening with kids where parents are overcommitting their kids into 3 sports and they just don't have any, yes, it's good to keep them busy so that they don't get, into the wrong direction. But at the same time, where's just the space just to kind of hang out and just chill? And then the last stress is all around occupational. So when we think about occupational stress, are you doing the right thing? Are you doing it with the right people? You could be in the right company with the wrong responsibilities. Environment, meaning, am I commuting an hour a day? That's just really not working in traffic. All these sort of environmental systems. Do I have the right chair so that I'm not, sitting is the new smoking, right? So that if we're sitting all the time, we're not active and we're not moving. How do I adjust that? This is a stand-up desk. So if I want to stand up, I can do that. I can set that up. Moving every hour for a couple of minutes is very, very important for us to get the nitrous oxide activated. So all of these contribute to my stress and my wellness levels, not any single item. So I could be eating really well, but hate my job. I could love my job, but eating like CRAP. Well, it is really, again, all of these things that contribute to this wellness position where I'm at. And the other one that people have to be careful in, today's news media is just a negative, putrid bowl. And you have to choose very carefully what you're going to watch when you watch. We canceled cable TV 25 years ago. I mean, now we stream and we have, Netflix and all some of these other sources or YouTube. And I just choose my media specifically and what I want to watch, who I want to watch that really has like values, like myself. And I'm not going to get in. If you just get into the mainstream media, they're just a negative
toxic.
cesspool.
Yeah,
They're
it's just
toxic.
toxic.
So, and there are a lot of people who were affected from 2020 that their system is now so fragile that any of sort of negative media that comes out, it just traumatizes them. And so they don't really have resilience. So they have to build that resilience back up, and you need to purge yourself of all that input. You need to move away from that because it's messing with your mind. You just can't do it. We want to make sure that those that are watching this podcast, you get the free gift for the book, The Quest for Purpose. So that URL, and then you'll put it, I'm sure, into the notes, is my speaker website, which is Ken Keis, KenKeis.com/Apex. And so you'll go to this hidden page. You'll be able to get a free download of the Quest for Purpose book, and we'll make sure that that's functioning and up and running for everybody here. And the other thing, or so that people know, is as a company, these tools or resources are available to other professionals globally. And you don't need certification to use them, but we are more open to anybody contacting us as how can all these assessments around self-actualization, identity, clarity be used for my own personal development and or the people that you serve, both professionally or personally or within a company or not. And I just wanted to let them know that that's crgleader.com. And they're more than free to contact us, and would be respond to those people who want to get breakthrough tools. I mean, 45 years later, number one rated personality tool in the world. And so just thanks for the opportunity to be able to serve people in that way.
Excellent. I'll definitely include it in the link, and also I'll make a little screenshot on the podcast so people can see it. Um, Let me ask you a couple more questions just about the organization. I mean, these will be cut out from the actual podcast. So you authored millions of words across books, assessments, training programs. How do you currently manage and repurpose that content across formats?
Well, welcome to AI and using chat and giving and dropping in my book contents. Okay, give me 20 text posts here. Um, Working with an agency that's interviewing me like this, and then they're using AI to generate long and short format content. One of the areas that we have been remiss that we have not done the way that we should, but we're going to very shortly, Art, is I have lots of videos and we've not created shorts. We've not created sort of promo videos. We've not created short, I'll call it educational videos. And so I love being being on the camera is nothing. It's a no brainer for me. I think you get my energy here. I feel comfortable doing this and speaking, and I have no notes in front of me. It's like everything we've talked about here is just doing this work for over 30 years. So that's where we have this out in the marketplace, but we can do a way better job in the video process. I had my own podcast for several years. We did 300 episodes, but I paused that podcast in 2002 to when we moved the business to finish all the online course development. And that was just totally consuming. I've got another few months of that, and then we'll see if I get back into the podcast business with my own podcast.
Just to reiterate, you create a lot of content, but that needs to be, I guess, edited, cut out properly, and posted properly, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, the content, a lot of the writing was assessments, which are something that's sold as a product. So the social media side, those pieces have not really been clipped out and put in at. Is if you buy an online course, let's say on the personality assessment, and it's got 4.5, 5 hours of video, then all that content development just has stayed there. We haven't clipped any of that out and put it into social media. So that's something that we haven't done that we could do. We have a social media manager who has all these different quotes from me that she posts on X or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram around our content pieces that we have taught. And so she aggregates and sends all of that out. Um, it's one of the areas that we're continuing to refine. So we're now a virtual team. So we had a full commercial office. And in 2021, we moved off of that 3,000 square foot office into a virtual team. And then so that we have moved pretty well all of our tools are virtual or cloud based now. So we moved our accounting system to, QuickBooks Online. We use Dropbox for that. We use Slack for communication. We just changed our CRM into a fully integrated system. So we used to be in Fusionsoft, and now we've moved to GHL. So Go High Level. So one of the agencies that has, and so GHL has the capability, of course, to do social media posts. You can build courses in it if you want to. You can have your CRM. We're just touching the surface with it, and then you can create all your funnels in it as well in that process. Now, our online courses and our online assessments, that's on entirely our own custom code. So we spent 15 years. There's a couple million lines of code. Now, of course, with AI code generation in the last few months, that's a whole different thing, but we're actually building out our own LMS. So the tracking and when I bought the company, none of our tools were online. There was no online system. So we built all of that from scratch over the last 15 years. And I have a senior CTO that's been with us for that entire time. So he's amazing. He works virtually. And then my assistant is virtual as well. And so that, and we have several, I'll call it contractors or suppliers. So the video guy, the social media person, the graphics person, the WordPress specialist, all of those are around us that we just call them, say, listen, we need help here. So rather than having them as employees, in our peak in the 2012 or whatever, we had like 12 full-time people indoors. Now, if I need programming, I have, a core team of 5, and then everybody else is contractors or suppliers as needed for the company.
That's a big team. And I'm
Well, we
assuming you.
haven't we haven't we haven't optimized, I'll call it, all the systems. So the triggers, the automated responses,
Yeah,
we have a lot of work on our SOPs to automate them and AI them.
yeah. That's Go High Level actually has a lot of that. Do you have any real-time dashboards that give you a clear picture view of revenue, client activity, program performance, or reporting
Well,
more?
QuickBooks gives me that. So everything is integrated from the site into it. So I can go in there and just see, what the revenue's been, what's that. Have we done a lot of planning? Have not. I've been just so busy building out the courses. We've just relied on our long-term clients really just to drive the business. And as I get these bundles finished, then we'll move into, I'll call it, the
Growth.
rebuilding of the company. I mean, our company revenue was the highest in 2018. And then 2020 it was obviously dropped because this space, we have a lot of consultants and trainers globally, and we're in 30 countries, 13 different languages. They basically contracted too. So we had a huge contract pending with a multi-billion-dollar company. Our associate in Paris was going to be deploying it, and that whole thing just got evaporated and never came back. So we just contracted, and then we said we'll build out all these online solutions, and then we'll lean back into doing the business development and the growth and scaling once what I call the complete picture is in place. So we had all the assessments in place as a system, but we didn't have all the online courses. And I'm being a little stubborn, Art, around it. It's kind of like, I don't want to sell you something that's not 100% complete. And so that's where we are selling them, and we do have people buying courses one at a time. But we moved our certification, which used to be in person, then it used to be virtual like this, to an online offering, which is an aggregation of all the tools. So people can be certified over a year's period of time, taking the online courses with monthly group cohort calls. So we changed our model that way.
Good. Okay. So where can the people find you?
So the 2 locations is crgleader.com, which has all the assessments, all the online courses, our coaching, mentoring offerings, our certification offerings. And then we mentioned around the free gift at Keis, KenKeis.com/Apex for them to get the free gift. But that's also my speaker site. So those are the most important. And then they can do info@crgleader.com as far as an email.
Excellent. Well, that was an absolutely incredible podcast. I'm really glad I had you on. Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining.
Well,
And
thanks, Art, and thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to serve.
likewise. Okay, we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Okay, bye
Talk
bye.
to you soon.